Welcome, my friends, to Dawn of the New Earth. Today we are talking about how the mother of the universe reveals that God is actually the devil in a book called The Three Forms of First Thought, or the Trimorphic Protonoia, which is a banned Gnostic text that reveals the true Trinity, the mother of the universe, and the dark origins of the God of the Bible. It's going to be really good. Now, I know we normally talk about alchemy on these Mondays, but we're taking a little break as I prepare for a particular aspect that I want to discuss there. So that's what we're talking about today. It's going to be really good, and we're going to get started. Like I said, this Gnostic text is going to discuss the birth of this dark, chaotic being that we know as the God of the Bible. So, as always, my friends, make sure that you like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. And become a member. When you become a member, you get access to all our members-only videos, and you get access to our my downloadable PDFs on inner transformation. There's a whole bunch on alchemy right now. You get those for free, and access to our Discord server. There's a lot. Just hit the join button and you can see all the different tiers and levels and the different things you can get. And we're having a members only video right after this, and it's going to be a really good one. This one is about how Eve didn't actually come from Adam's rib, that it's based on a mistranslation in the Bible, and that changes everything. So that's going to be really good for members. Follow me on Spotify, links in the description, and check out my book series. If you don't know where to begin, start with this one. Book number 1, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind, which is all about how to eliminate and destroy all systems of conditioning and brainwashing and limitations that have been instilled in you since birth, so that you can become free to truly create yourself and reach higher states of consciousness. But there's a whole series. Check them out. But I recommend starting with that one. It's on Audible as well. All right, enough of that. I think that's everything. Let's begin. The Trimorphic Protonoia. So, as always, this you can read these for free on gnosis.org. This is an ancient text that's somewhere around, 2,000 years old. Not quite 2,000 years old, but pretty darn old. Probably 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th century CE, somewhere around there. They were discovered in 1945 near the tombs of Egypt. So what is this particular book? It's called The Trimorphic Protonoia, which means the three forms of first thought. And there's a lot of threes in here. And so this is essentially discussing Barbelo, who is the mother of the universe, this great goddess who is the creator of all things, essentially. And she is not just a she, because she's androgynous. She's everything. She is the Trinity. It says in one of the aspects here, I am the Father, I am the Mother, I am the Son. So Barbelo's the father, Barbelo's the mother, Barbelo is the son. She's typically referred to as a she, but she's all these things in one. And so we have here this book called The Three Forms of First Thought. So what does this mean? Barbelo is the first thought. Barbelo is the first thought of the One. The One is like the ultimate source. Barbelo is the very first expression of the source. So she is the highest entity possible, except for just the one, the source itself. She is the trimorphic. She is the Trinity. She is the highest being. And so it's three forms of first thought. She is the first thought. So this is Barbelo's essentially three forms. And what are these three forms? The three forms are the thought, the voice, and the word. What does this mean? We've discussed this before. Check out the playlist on this video series if you haven't seen it, if you want more detail on this. But so we have the thought, the voice, and the word. What does this mean? Thought is potential. When you think about something, you have everything that you need to as a blueprint. So for example, if you want to go and get something to eat out of the fridge, you got to think of, unless you're going on instinct, you got to think about it and plan it. But if you're thinking about it and planning it, are you actually doing it? No, it's just potential, but you need that potential for it to actualize. So thought is potential, not actuality yet, but potential. Voice, though, however, voice is becoming actual. Voice is something that's becoming actual. So you have the thought, and then you have the expression through a voice, but just voice is unstructured and chaotic. It's just noise, essentially. And then that's where the word comes in. The word is structured voice. the voice that has become structured. Like right now, I'm using lots of words. If I wasn't using lots of words and just using noises, this would not be a very entertaining video, or it might be a really entertaining video. I don't know. It depends on your perspective. But anyway, you see what I mean is that the word is structuring the voice into something that it says essentially the blueprint of all reality. Like it's the structure, the word, the logos. You can think of it as like the programming code of reality that generates everything. So you have three forms of first thought. You have thought, voice, and word. Thought in potential, voice in expression, word that structures everything. Okay? So we have the trimorphic protonoia, three forms of first thought. Who is Barbelo? Who is the Father? Who is the Mother? Who is the Son? So let's get into it now that you have that quick recap and breakdown. Last where we left off, I know it's been a little while. Last where we left off, we just were introduced to the luminaries. The luminaries are beings of divine light that help structure reality. And so one of these divine beings is called a Elith. Now, a Elith is typically referred to as a he. For whatever reason, I think of a Elith as a she, but a Elith, I mean, all these beings are androgynous. They're not male or female. When you're in the eonic realm, the realm of the eons, these realms of light, all these beings are androgynous. Even Yaldabaoth is considered androgynous. Even the archons are considered androgynous. There is no delineation or strict separation here. But anyway, so let's just start. Let's get into this. And if it sounds confusing at first, as always, just, it's going to make sense. It'll fall into place as we go along. Then came a word. Hey, a word. Remember, words are important. Words aren't just words. Words are commands. Words are functions of the code of reality. Then came a word from the great Elith and said, I am king. Who is of chaos? And who is of the underworld? So Elith is an extremely powerful being. This is beyond, well beyond the God of the Bible, well beyond the heavens and the angels. This is an eonic being, a being of pure light. And so Elith represents this divine, higher wisdom, this higher word, one of the four great luminaries in Gnostic cosmology. Sometimes there's more, but usually there's four primary ones. And what he's talking about here when he says, I'm king, is he's not saying I'm Lord of the earth or anything like this, but he's rather just declaring, hey, I have truth and order. I am the one that directs, right? It is an organizing function, because that's what Elith is doing. Elith is saying, hey, I am king. I am the one that organizes. Who is of chaos and who is of the underworld? We need to get to some ordering here. So let's start doing this. Listen up. So that's what he's beginning to separate, give order to the forces of divine light from the forces of darkness, ignorance, the underworld, illusion, and ultimately calling out the false rulers of the material world. So we'll get to that right now. Let's see. So Elith says this, and suddenly his light appeared, shining forth, given afterthought. The powers at the powers asked nothing of him. Suddenly there appeared the great demon, whose rule over the lowest part of the underworld and who rules over the lowest part of the underworld and chaos. All right, so let's break this down here. So first of all, this light appearing suddenly is divine truth, divine structure. And when it says afterthought here, so afterthought often refers to Sophia. If you're not familiar with Sophia, you should be. Watch my video on the Sophia of Jesus Christ. I just released a couple days ago. It's called Jesus Reveals Reality as an Illusion in this 2,000-year-old text, gospel, something like that. Okay, so Sophia is called afterthought. Why? Well, Sophia is one of the eons. And Sophia is often representative of like a part of a Elith or an aspect of a Elith. And Sophia represents divine wisdom. And she's called afterthought because she's one of the reflective thoughts of the highest divine mind, of the one. So remember how Barbelo is the first thought of the one? Barbelo this is the trimorphic portanoia, 3 forms of first thought, 3 forms of the first thought, 3 forms of Barbelo. So these are all of these eons, all of these beings are thoughts from the one, the source. That's why Sophia is called afterthought, because Sophia is not the first thought. She's a thought that comes after and usually represents like reflection as well, like self-thought. Afterthought, it's not the first thought. So afterthoug's not a negative thing. We do in our colloquial language, we might think, oh, that's just an afterthought. Like, I didn't give it much attention, or it's not really necessary. That's not what this means here. Stuff is just written weird. It just means it's not the first thought. It's a thought that comes later, and it represents reflection. And so here you have afterthought, who is Sophia. And Sophia is very important because Sophia is the one who, if you saw my video, Sophia is the one who gave birth to this dark god. So remember, if any of this gets like confusing, if you didn't watch the other video, really watch it. It's necessary to really grasp this stuff well. But in that video, I talked about how reality is like this mind of light that reflects itself into various aspects in a holographic way. And so all these beings are just like different reflections or aspects of the source. Like even Barbelo is the first thought of the source, and then Elith is a thought within a thought, and then Sophia is a thought within a thought within a thought. So you have like Barbelo, the father, the mother, the son, and then the great luminaries. And one of those luminaries are Elith. And from Elith comes Sophia. And so it's really like a Russian doll sort of thing, or a hall of mirrors, where all these beings are like interrelated. Because remember, all of this is representing the structure of the soul, of the structure of the mind, the structure of the psyche. Psyche means soul. So your soul is reflective of this structure. So when we talk about these stories and understand these stories, we're learning about the structure of our minds. Now, these are old texts, so it doesn't mean it's going to be right 100% of the time, but we can use them as very powerful tools to explore the archetypal structure of our psyche. Wisdom, understanding, ignorance, shadow, darkness, integration, understanding, etc., knowledge. So anyway, so it talks about then, it says the powers of the powers asked nothing of him. So powers of the powers represent, they're the demonic forces. They're the servants of Yaldabaoth. They're the servants of the great demon. So we're going to get to the great demon. But the powers of the powers, they're the great demons. Or they're the servants of the great demon. So it says, suddenly there appeared the great demon who rules over the lowest part of the underworld and chaos. So who is this great demon? Of course, this great demon is Yaldabaoth, the ruler of the material world. As we know from previous videos, I'm sure most of you know this already, he thinks that he's God. He thinks that he's the creator. He's an ignorant being, and he rules the chaotic world of matter and represents the deepest level of ignorance. This is what Yaldabaoth represents. Hardcore ignorance. This is the demon of demons, the darkest demon. The demon of demons, the darkest demon, the worst thing imaginable, isn't sin, isn't violence, isn't fear, isn't anger. It's ignorance. And that's incredibly important to understand and see why books like this are so powerful in understanding how our minds and the world works. The greatest evil, the king demon, the king ruler, the ruler of darkness, isn't fear, isn't anger, isn't violence, isn't any of those things. It's ignorance. That is the ultimate evil. That is the ultimate darkness. And can you not see that reflected in our world today? Because look at all the shit that we have going on in the world right now. Like, the world is fucked up right now. We have a lot of homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, violence, war, bloodshed, chaos, whatever. It's fucked. You name it, we got it. Why? What's the root of all of this? Ignorance. It can all be traced back to ignorance, stupidity, ignorance. One who is not ignorant, one who is truly enlightened, none of these things would occur. All of this is because the world is blinded by the great demon, Yaldabaoth, who is the ruler of this world and spreads ignorance and chaos. So that, and how do we combat this? The light of knowledge, or Gnosis. Check out my shirt, by the way. It says Gnosis, which means knowledge and refers to Gnosticism, and that's Jesus, who's quite an enlightened fellow in this depiction. And then up there you can see this, which is called the monad, and it represents the one, the source that we've been talking about. That's what this represents, and you can see that it's like connecting to Christ as an avatar of the source, as we all are avatars. Anyway, I thought this shirt was like pretty cool and funny. I like it. Anyway, we are getting to the great demon. The great demon is here. Yaldabaoth, ignorance, darkness, destruction. And let's see where we're at. So it says, he has no form or perfection. Rather, he has the form of the glory of those conceived in darkness. In other words, he's not truly divine. He lacks the perfection of the highest realms. His form of the glory of those conceived in darkness basically means that he only reflects like a corrupt and distorted version of divine light. So Yaldabaoth is an imitator rather than a true creator. So Yaldabaoth is also known as the dim ruler because he's a being of darkness and shadow. But guess what? He actually has some light. He has some light from his mother, Sophia. Sophia is his mother. And so he's called this dim, he's the dim ruler because he's darkness and shadow with a bit of light. And that bit of light is what allows him to like twist creation. That's like the core that powers him. That's what allows him to twist and bend creation to his will. But it's always a distorted version of the divine realm. Whenever he creates something, he creates like a really shitty, buggy version of it. But he still makes it, but it's just a poor replica. He's like the Temu or the Wish version of being a reality. So, okay, it says now. So what's his name? Now he is called Sakla, Samael, Yaldabaoth, he who took power, who stole it away from innocent Sophia. Okay, so this book is saying that he stole Sophia's power and contains some of Sophia's light. And you can see he's got a lot of names. Sakla, Samael, Yaldabaoth. He's also been called Nibruel, and he's got other names as well. There's another name. So Sakla means fool. Samael means blind god. And Nibruel means rebel. So he's like the blind, ignorant, foolish rebel. And there's another name that I can't remember what the name is. It's related to, it's almost Ariel, but it's not quite Ariel. So typically Ariel is considered like a feminine name. It's whatever the masculine name of Ariel is. I can't quite remember it. But what it means in Hebrew is Lion of God. And basically one of the texts says that those who serve him call him Lion of God. Something along those lines. And what's interesting is that in the Bible, here's a really interesting thing. So in the Bible, God is referred to as the lion. Like lion imagery is always associated with God. He's called the Lion of Judah. God is symbolized by the lion. Yaldabaoth is symbolized by a lion. Yaldabaoth is described as having the body of a dragon, the face of a lion, whose eyes flash like lightning bolts. But here's the interesting thing. In the Bible, God is referred to as a lion. Guess who else is referred to as a lion in the Bible? Satan. Satan is also referred to as a lion. Kind of interesting, isn't it? We have both God and Satan being referred to as lions. So it's an interesting idea. You have this sort of positive view of a lion that they want to put, like, power and kingly lordship. But then when it's applied to Satan, it's the prowler, the hunter, the one who mauls. Anyway, very interesting stuff. But let's continue here. So yeah, so he stole power from Sophia. He didn't like literally steal it, but it depends on the version. Like in the Secret Book of John, he just contained that power because he came from her. So she created him. So he's got some of his power. Let's see. It says, originally he overpowered her. She is the light's afterthought who descended, from whom the great demon came from the beginning. So Sophia's descent here is her fall from the divine realm because she created this being of darkness. And she created this being of darkness unintentionally. She didn't do it on purpose. It was kind of an accident. And the idea here, there's different versions of Gnosticism. Some versions of Gnosticism, Sophia gets like trapped in the material world. Other versions of Gnosticism have it where she returns to the realm of light, but like not all the way to the highest levels because she's been like kind of contaminated by darkness. It's just a certain level. However, there's another version that I really like, in that Sophia actually like splits with a shadow version of herself. We'll talk about this. It's really cool. So there's a being called Achamoth, and Achamoth is the shadow version of Sophia. So Sophia means wisdom. Achamoth means wisdom of death. And in this version, it's like the shadow version of Sophia that gets split off from Sophia and creates Yaldabaoth. I like this interpretation a lot. We'll talk about it more in the future, but it's really cool. Even the name Achamoth is like a perversion of Chokhmah, which is the Hebrew word for wisdom. Chokhmah gets perverted into Achamoth, transforming it into wisdom of death. It's cool. It's pretty cool. Another one of my favorite characters. I love Sophia, and all the different expressions of Sophia are super cool. She's such an interesting, multifaceted being. And in another video, I'll show you how all this connects. In a future video, I want to show you how Sophia connects. Sophia, Achamoth, Eve, Lilith. All of these beings are like different permutations, different expressions of the same being. Really cool stuff. I'm getting way off track, but we'll talk about that. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you know when we do talk about that. So let's see. So the afterthought of light, that's Sophia. She's the afterthought. Remember, that's not, I know it sounds like such a negative thing, right? But it's not. It doesn't mean afterthought. It means just like not the first thought. The afterthought of light, Sophia, knew the great demon had begged Elith for another order, though he was lower than afterthought. And she said, give me another order so that you may be a place for me to live, so I will not fall into endless disorder. Okay, so here Sophia is seeking structure. Like I said, there are different versions of what happens to Sophia. And in some versions of Sophia, in some versions, she gets like trapped in the material world. And here in the material world is the world of chaos. And Yaldabaoth is like, hey, I want order. He's telling Elith, give me order. That's what Yaldabaoth is saying. And Sophia's kind of like, hey, no, don't. He sucks. Don't do that. He's an asshole. I need some structure here. So Sophia is searching structure. Yaldabaoth, even though he's a corrupted force, he's still part of the grand cosmic order of things. Again, it depends on which version of Gnosticism that you're reading. In some versions of Gnosticism, Yaldabaoth is just straight up evil. In other versions, he's not great, but he's like an ordering force. He it's kind of like, ooh, you're kind of a dick, but you do keep things in order. So Yaldabaoth helps to maintain the order in the material world in some versions. But here Sophia is asking for an order, meaning like structure or framework. And she says she wants this so she doesn't fall into endless disorder, like complete chaos, where nothing has any meaning or form. So that's what Sophia is saying, like, hey, give me some order here. And the order of the entire house of glory agreed with her word. She was blessed, and the higher order yielded to her. Well, that's nice. So Sophia gets what she wants in a good way. She's granted to have a place in this divine order, right? Even though she fell into darkness, she's not abandoned. She's redeeming herself. And this is a really interesting thing as well. Oh, there's so many layers to this. I could go on for so long. So in some in the versions of Gnosticism where Sophia becomes lost in the material world, we are Sophia. And this is also represented in Judaism by the Shekinah, the feminine presence of God that's in the world. And so in the versions of Gnosticism where Sophia is sort of becomes trapped in the material world, it represents our soul. So in those aspects, it represents our soul stuck in the world of darkness, trying to find its way out. So anyway here, but here, Sophia is given order, is given structure, so she doesn't become consumed by the chaos. Oh, wow. We have, let's see. Okay, let's keep going here. Now the great demon began to make eons in the likeness of the real eternal realms, except that he produced them out of his own power. All right, so what Yaldabaoth is doing is creating dark servants, essentially. And he's doing this by imitating the divinity, imitating the eons. So he creates eons, he creates spiritual realms. Eons are sometimes beings, sometimes realms. They're kind of like all these, their concepts are kind of all these things at once. But they're distortions, they're illusions, they're twisted, corrupted energy. And it's a corrupted form of the divine patterns of existence. Who's the I here? This is Barbelo. By the way, the one telling this story is Barbelo from first person. So Barbelo says, I too revealed my voice. So that's Barbelo talking. Barbelo says, I too revealed my voice. Secretly saying, stop, 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 you who walk on matter. Okay, here's an interesting thing. So Barbelo is using her voice to secretly say this to Yaldabaoth. Hey, stop it, stop it, stop it. No, bad. And she calls him, you who walk on matter. Now, this is really interesting. So a lot of people ask, like, what does the name Yaldabaoth mean? What does it mean? And in one of the Gnostic texts, I want to say that it's in the Secret Book of John. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's in the Secret Book of John. It says that Yaldabaoth means something like he who walks back and forth. That might sound kind of weird, right? Like he who walks back and forth. That's a weird name. Now, there's a couple things that this could allude to. It could allude to, like the pacing lion that walks back and forth, like the prowling lion. But what I think that this refers to is, see right here, Barbelo is saying, stop, you who walk on matter. That's very similar to he who walks back and forth. So when it says he who walks back and forth, my interpretation, what I think that means, it's referring to his place in the world of chaos and the world of matter, because it's like a spatial domain. It's a domain of matter. It's a place where you can walk back and forth. In the frequency domain, the realm of light, there's no physical walking, at least not like how we understand it here in bodies. Like walking back and forth is a very physical sort of thing. So what does Yaldabaoth means? It means he who walks back and forth, which is probably what Barbelo is referring to when she says, stop, stop, you who walk on matter. Anyway, it's probably related to his position as ruler of the material world. So stop it, you who walk on matter. Look, oh, she's pissed. Look, I'm coming down there. Look, I'm coming down to the... Yaldabaoth is always getting in trouble. I am coming down to the world of mortals for my portion that was there from the time when the innocent Sophia was conquered. Okay, so here we have this speaker who is Barbelo, and saying that essentially that she's calling out to those who are trapped in the material world. And she is going to go in to the realm of mortals. It says, for my portion that was there from the time when innocent Sophia was conquered. So basically, Yaldabaoth is trapping sparks of divine light into matter. And it says, Barbelo is coming to get her portion that was there from when the time when innocent Sophia was conquered. So how Yaldabaoth is doing this, at least in the secret book of John, it describes him creating humans as breathing a portion of Sophia's light that he contains into fleshly bodies. So that's likely what this is referencing. Like, hey, you stole the light. You've trapped it in matter. Stop it. You're a dick. I'm going to go down there and help people escape. More or less, that's what's being said here. The chief creator of ignorance reigned over chaos and the underworld and produced a human being in my likeness, but he didn't know his creation would be a decree of his annulment, nor did he recognize the power in him. Okay, so Yaldabaoth creates a human being. It says in my likeness, Barbelo's likeness. What does this mean? Again, in the secret book of John, we get a better detail of what's happening. Yaldabaoth essentially sees the pattern of the divine realm, and he tries to copy it. Copy and paste. He basically sees how Barbelo is structured, and so tries to recreate that structure. But it says, but he didn't know that his creation would be a decree of his annulment, nor did he recognize the power in him, meaning that this being that Yaldabaoth is creating, these humans are going to ruin his plan. And how? Okay, so this is what happens. Yaldabaoth creates a human body, but he does so on the pattern of the divine realm, and then breathes light into it. And then this being, this human, is more powerful than Yaldabaoth. And the reason why this being is more powerful than Yaldabaoth is because Yaldabaoth created a structure based on the divine realms. So he before even creating a material body, he creates this like spiritual body, but it's a copy of the divine realms, and then he breathes life into it. But the divine realms are extremely powerful. So even though it's kind of like a knockoff version, he created this being that's ultimately more powerful than him because it's modeled on divinity. Yaldabaoth isn't modeled on divinity. Yaldabaoth has light in him, but he's a being of darkness. This entity, this human that Yaldabaoth creates, is modeled on divinity and then gets light breathed into it and sort of activates all these like power cells. And so you have this being. Another way to understand it is like, imagine someone who Like imagine a human being that creates an AI program. And then let's say that AI program gets smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter and so smart that it surpasses its creator. I'm not saying that AI could actually do that. I'm just using that as an example from like sci-fi movies and stuff. It's kind of something like that is similar to what's going on here. It says, but he didn't know his creation would be a decree of his annulment, nor did he recognize the power in him. So basically human beings are going to fuck his shit up. Remember, he recognized ignorance. He represents ignorance. Yaldabaoth is ignorance. Human beings have light within them. Most humans are dumb, so they don't know that. So they're just wandering around in ignorance and darkness under the spell of Yaldabaoth. But those who know themselves, know thyself, who achieve gnosis, which means knowledge of their light, they become shining beacons of light, which does what? Dispels the darkness, dispels the ignorance. So essentially, the humans who have the light within them, the ones that access this light and express it, are going to undo the world of ignorance and undo his creation. That's what we need to do right now in this ignorant, backwards world that's covered in shadow. This is why it's so important for us to access our light and activate it right here and now. That's why it's incredibly important to raise your consciousness, because as you raise your consciousness, the consciousness of the collective raises, and you'll be even more empowered to help others once you're at that level yourself. So working on your level of consciousness is incredibly important to ultimately transforming the world. We need way more people who are at a higher level of consciousness. So working on yourself is a great way to start that spark that will ultimately light up the world. Okay. So, let's see what time it is. Okay. Let's see how, okay. So Barbelo continues and says, I tore off from you the bonds and broke the chains of the underworld demons, the same restraints that bound me. So here again, we're talking about spiritual revelation, liberation, the chains of the underworld and demons it's the illusion, ignorance, basically everything I just said, but said more poetically. Barbelo is bringing the light to break the chains, break the ignorance, essentially, not just automatically, but it's to get human beings to reflect internally, to understand their true divine origin. Right. So like that's represented by Jesus Christ, who is an avatar of the source that brings enlightenment to humanity so that they can look within and become Christs themselves. The second coming of Christ is a collective coming. The second coming of Christ is all of us. We are the second coming of Christ. It's a mass awakening. That's what that means. So Christ isn't a being to worship. Christ wouldn't want you to worship him. He'd be like, stop that. That's gross. And he'd be appalled to see what they've done to him and twisted his message. He'd be like, what the fuck? You turned me into a white capitalist? What are you thinking here? This is really weird. Anyway, long story short, Christ represents our awakening. It's not a being to worship, not a entity to grovel to, someone that we can just use as a model to reflect into ourselves and wake up. That's all. Christ represents revelation. Christ represents knowledge that helps us come to an awakening. It's a higher state, higher form of understanding, higher form of consciousness. Let's see. I overthrew the high walls of darkness and I broke the secure gates of those pitiless ones and smashed their bars. Great, isn't it? Love the imagery here. Barbelo kicking ass. I informed all who are mine, who are children of the light, how to nullify the enemies, be free of bonds, and return to where they first were. We're all the children of the light, and Barbelo represents the knowledge of how to nullify the enemies, dispel ignorance. That's what that means. And return to where they first were to attain higher states of consciousness before we were thrown into a lower state of consciousness, to have that development of a higher state of mind, a higher state of being that will allow us to dispel the darkness. I am the first who descended for my portion of what was left behind, the spirit in the soul, which came from the water of life and the immersion of the mysteries. So now we have some really cool like alchemical imagery going in here. We have spirit, we have soul, we have the water of life, and immersion of the mysteries. We're having here of like a spiritual baptism. What does the spirit and the soul represent? So the soul is typically, so in Gnosticism, you had three types of people. You had the hylics, the psychics, and the pneumatics. Hylics means material. Psychics means soul, not like you can bend spoons or read people's minds, soul. And pneumatics meant spirit. So you had the material people, the soulful people, and the spiritual people. And the material people were like those who were obsessed with matter. Just matter. They'd have no understanding of the higher nature, etc. Soul or psyche, it's like the mind, those who analyze and understand, and they have a potential for waking up. And then the spirit, though, the spirit is what really drives us and connects us to the divine realm. It's our impetus to become higher than human. That's essentially what spirit is. So she says that she's coming for her portion that was left behind, the spirit in the soul, that drive of the inner spark that is in the soul as spirit. And so let's see, Barbelo continues, I bore fruit in them, the thought of the unchanging eternal realm and my house and their father. Fruit always represents either knowledge or the production of something or both. So when something produces fruit, what that means is that it's fulfilling what it's supposed to do. Like a tree, what's the end goal of the tree? It's the fruit that it produces. When you plant an apple tree, you plant the apple tree so that it will produce apples. It produces the fruit. So someone who produces fruit is like someone who is going out there and getting to work and creating change, creating transformation. Because if you don't produce fruit, it's like someone who sits and watches Netflix all day and doesn't do anything else. They're not producing no apples, no bananas, no nothing. They're just sitting there eating hot chip. That's all they're doing. And so you have those who do produce fruit, but fruit also can represent knowledge as well, because, well, you know, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and which represents knowledge and understanding. So when Barbelo says, I bore fruit in them, what is that fruit? The thought of the unchanging eternal realm and my house and their father. So when she says she bore fruit in them, it means that she put within them the thought of the unchanging eternal realm, revealed this fruit of knowledge, giving them directly. You know, there's not just one tree here. She's passing out fruit to everybody. She's waking people up. But remember, she's not like an actual being out there. She exists within you. So she's the part of you that drives you, that voice in your head that's like, there's got to be more to life than this. There's got to be more to it. What this is it? What's going on? Something's not right here. That's what this represents. So then everyone in me shone, and I made a pattern for those lights that are ineffable in me. Amen. So in other words, in the end, those who embrace the light ultimately become lights themselves, shining with the knowledge of the true origin. So those who access the light, well, guess what happens when you access the light? You give off light and you help others activate their light as well. That's why I said it's important to work on yourself so you can reach higher states of consciousness, because you can't help others until you've activated your own light. You have to activate your own light to be that shining beacon that helps others activate their light as well. This is also if anyone's familiar with Abraham Maslow, the fantastic psychologist. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's pinnacle of the hierarchy of needs is self-actualization, but there's actually an extended hierarchy, and there's one level above self-actualization, and that is transcendence. And transcendence is like connection to divinity, as well as helping others to actualize. So basically, you have to actualize yourself before you can reach transcendence, which means true connection to divinity, the true source, and helping others to wake up as well. So it becomes, once you activate your light, then you have the power of light to help illuminate others. And every single one of us becomes an illuminator of knowledge. And we are the ones who can then plant trees of knowledge across the world and wake up the world. That's why it's so important. People ask, like, what can we do? What can we do? The only thing that we can do for lasting, sustainable change, sure, there's lots of small little things we can do, and they're very important. But overall, for lasting, sustainable, true change, the only thing that will lead to that is higher levels of consciousness. Anything else is more like a Band-Aid fix, or, not, again, there's plenty of stuff that one can do that is helpful, but ultimately, the thing that will ultimately fix the world is only nothing else but higher consciousness. Why? Because this has been the battle that's been raging on for millennia. Ignorance versus knowledge. Ignorance versus knowledge. All the bullshit in the world is because of ignorance, but it can be dispelled by the light of knowledge, which means first and foremost, reaching higher states of awareness and consciousness within you first. So it's okay to focus on you. It's a good thing. Then, once you achieve a certain level of sufficient understanding, you then have the power to help others wake up as well. And this will cause a ripple effect and a chain reaction as all these lights illuminate the world. That is what is required for true lasting change. You can see the roots of evil everywhere. It's all ignorance. The Gospel of Philip says, the mother of evil is ignorance. Yaldabaoth, ignorance. Ignorance is the cause of all these problems. But luckily, we have the antidote. We have the fruit. We have the light. So I hope you enjoyed this, my friends. Let me know if you want to continue reading the Trimorphic Protonoia. There's a lot more to it. So I will, let me know in the comments. Tell me if you want more of this particular book. And yeah, we're going to do a members only video right now about how Eve didn't actually come from Adam's rib, that this could very well be a mistranslation and it changes everything. So that's what we're going to take a look at. Become a member to be a part of that. It helps out a lot. Check out my book, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind, and follow me on Spotify. Links for all of that are in the description of this video. When you become a member, you also get access to all my PDFs and downloads on inner alchemy and inner transformation, which is about how to reach a higher consciousness. All right. So thank you, my friends. Big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, DB, Nusalina, Dallas, Sacred Moth, LaDonna, Mario, and our newest supporter, let me see, Vu Only. I'm probably not saying that right, but thank you, my friend. Thank you all. And I appreciate it very much.